let me talk about Sharia compliancy. So the main thing is that there are different schools of thoughts on Sharia compliancy. So depending on which like school of thought you follow, there are many like four mainstream ones and then certain like subsections of those. So every single school of thought or many of them have their own rulings on what is Sharia compliant, what is not. For most people, for like in ease of understanding, you can always look at the Islamic ETFs. For example, let me share here. These are the three Sharia compliant ETFs on scalable capital, right? So again, it depends on the school of thought you're following. Certain school of thought say that even these are not Sharia compliant. So it's a difficult thing to say, as I'm not a religious scholar and I don't like I cannot give you a ruling on which school of thought you're following. So it depends. Like ask a religious scholar who is in your school of thought to get their opinion. But for many people, for the sake of simplicity, let's say if someone is looking to get started with Sharia compliant investing, then these three options are really good starting point. And if someone is looking for individual stocks, again, these are really good starting points. For example, if someone is looking for Sharia compliant stocks in the United States, right? You go into this ETF and then you go into the document. So let me quickly Google this ETF and then share the individual stocks with you guys. So, okay. So for example, this is a Sharia compliant ETF. So if you're looking for individual stocks, you go to the positions and then you can see which companies are present in this Sharia compliant ETF. For example, Microsoft, Tesla, ExxonMobil, Johnson and Johnson, stuff like that. If you're looking for individual stocks, according to this ETF, all of these companies are Sharia compliant. Obviously, companies go in, companies go out of Sharia compliancy. So looking at individual stocks, you might have to sell a position or buy into other positions. So it depends. And as I said, the rulings are different. Some say that if there is a 3% interest in the company, it's not Sharia compliant. Obviously, there are certain obvious rules that companies have to, like certain industries are not allowed, those aren't Sharia compliant. So those are different or difficult kinds of things that you have to consider. But for someone who's really looking to simply get started with Sharia compliancy, these three ETFs are a really good starting point for you. And with individual stocks, you can definitely go inside, search for these stocks, get to this website, go to the positions and see the individual companies. If you are interested in individual stocks, you can definitely look into these things. If you don't know, I have a website. So it has a lot of content. If you're someone who really likes to read stuff, if you are interested in what I recommend, or if you are really interested in just some investing platforms, I do have a lot of comparisons. I have certain reviews. You can quickly go through the overview of certain things. If you're looking for investing platforms, if you're looking for credit cards, I also have certain comparisons. Then for bank accounts, I try to update these options quite often. So you can definitely look into these things on my website. I also have articles. These are usually corresponding to the videos that I make, but with certain changes in terms of writing style. So you can also look into articles if you're into reading. And then there's another option of signing up to the newsletter. I have 3 free resources that you can have as a thank you for joining the newsletter. I try to send one newsletter per week, but I'm not that consistent. So you'll definitely get at least one or two emails within a month. Another thing which I'm really working on is a couple of tools for my website. So the first tool that I'm really working on is the Netto Brutto Rechner. There are options available on the internet. Most of them are in German. So I'm trying to work on an English version of that. And there are certain other tools which I'm also working on. I'll definitely let you guys know by Q1 next year. Another thing is that I had launched a workshop where I worked with some of you guys and we did basics on how to get started with investing, stuff like that. It was a premium workshop, so I worked with you guys. It was a limited access. It was shared with people who were in the, I would say, newsletter and certain posts that I shared on YouTube and stuff like that. So now I've packaged this as a like standalone pre-recorded workshop So you'll get like 90 plus minutes of different topics for someone who's really beginner investing, beginner in investing. It does include the basics of how to really stay consistent with long term investing, like the psychology of financial control, how to build 3 tier budget, then setting up your financial goals. And then I go really into building a path for building wealth in Germany. I'll also add a couple of new modules, like I'll make certain tutorials which will be really in depth of how to use scalable capital, trading 212 in very high detail. For this course, I'm planning to make really in depth videos, like an hour, 2 hour long sections. I'll also cover Sharia compliancy in detail. So if you're interested, you can definitely look into it. It's not a free option right now, it's on sale. I also have sent people discount coupons using my newsletter. So if you are registered there, sometimes I do send additional coupons for people who are interested. So these were the things that I really wanted to discuss today.